Today we're going to learn how to use the ACE process in composing an email. We're going to learn how to use the analyzing, decomposing, and the evaluating parts of the ACE process. So throughout the presentation I have created a real-world example of myself emailing my boss and technical director George Joka, trying to persuade him to create a development program for our club. So I'm not going to go over my actual example, but instead I'm going to focus more on the ACE process and how it can help out not only my example, but any type of writing that you do, especially when writing an email. So a quick overview of what our presentation is going to look like. From slides 4 through 7, we're going to go through the analyzing process. From slides 8 through 13, we're going to go through the composing process. And then we're going to learn how to use the evaluating process to help revise and get a final draft from 14 through 17. So when beginning the analyzing process, we really want to ask ourselves 3 key questions to get our line of thought. We want to ask ourselves, what is the message you want to get across to your audience? What is the outcome you would like to achieve? And who your primary and secondary audience is. Once we've gone through these 3 key questions, we can then start analyzing our audience. This is a very key and important part of the process, since your email is really going to be detailed and really targeted towards this audience and really specific towards this audience. So you can start asking yourself a couple questions about the audience, like what does the audience already know? What do they need to know? When do they need to know it? How do you think they're going to react from this information? Will they have questions and objections? And what benefits would they get from this proposal? Getting all of these down on paper will really help and make the composing part of your process a lot easier. Once we've analyzed our audience, we can start thinking about the composing part and the composing process. So in the composing process, we're really going to think about a couple things. We're going to try to create an outline that's going to help with the creating of the draft. We're going to choose what type of organization we're going to use, whether that's direct or indirect. And then finally, we're going to create a draft. So when composing the actual outline, a key thing to keep in mind is that an outline doesn't always have to be this very long and really elaborate and detailed writing, especially when there's the shorter emails and shorter writings and messages that we're composing. We can use less of an elaborate outline just to get your thoughts out on a piece of paper and help your line of thought again. So you can list key topics in the order that you will present them. That's definitely going to help you with the composing part. You can break down a topic into major ideas and supporting details. Once you've got that outline done with the subject line, with the heading, with the main idea, with some supporting ideas, and with the conclusion, you can start thinking about which type of organization you want to use. A direct organization would be better to use if you believe that the audience is going to react positively or they're going to be neutral to your idea. If you believe that the audience is going to have some type of resistance towards your idea, it's better off that you use the indirect organization. So what's the difference between direct and indirect organization? A direct organization will outline their message by first presenting the main idea and then following it with the supporting details, while the indirect organization is first going to present the supporting details and then bring in the main idea after. So before you start the final part, which is drafting the actual email, you want to think about just a couple more things, and that would be that your email should really contain one main point. It should clearly identify the topic and purpose in the subject line. You should begin with a focused first paragraph. Use topic-specific headings. Format important list as bullet points to help with understanding. and end with the signature block. Then you can start with the hard part, the drafting process. So once you start the drafting process, you want to understand that a big part of the drafting process is to focus more on getting the words down on paper, right, rather than writing and revising at the same time. You want to draft freely and just write your ideas that come into your head on the paper without really having the fear that this is the final draft and if this is what's going to be graded. If you do experience some writer's block, which I know we all do, you can try to say the ideas out loud, or you can begin by writing certain easier parts first and then finish with the harder parts. After you're done creating the draft, you can then move on to the evaluating process. The evaluating process is a key part of the ACE process that no one should really overlook, and I know it definitely does get overlooked, especially when you're tired of writing an email and thinking about it. But do not skip it. It's a very, very important part. And if you don't, it can lead to some incomplete thoughts. It can lead to some awkward sentences and some grammatical errors that you could avoid it if you just went through the evaluation process. So when going through the evaluation process, you want to use some key questions or a template that are going to help with the evaluating process and making it a bit easier for yourself. You also want to pay attention to some key common errors that we make in our writing. So some of these key questions that you can use to help your line of thought when evaluating your work and to help guide yourself are: you want to ask yourself, are your purpose and your main points clear? Have you provided all the information you need to support your purpose? Will the organization of that information make sense to the audience? And is the message persuasive enough to be successful? So once you've went ahead and answered those questions, you can then move on to thinking about some of the other key factors and key common errors that we make in our writing. Is your writing clear? Have you used abstract language versus concrete language? Have you used an active versus passive voice? You want to try to use an active voice as it is clearer and more concise. Are you using slang and cliches in your writing, which you want to try to avoid as they can cause confusion with your audience? What type of style are you using in your audience, and how will the audience react to that style that you have chosen? And what type of tone have you chosen for your message? These are some key common errors that writers make when composing their emails and their writing, which you can easily avoid just by going through the evaluating process and checking for these key common errors. So once you've gone through the evaluation process, you are done with the ACE process, and hopefully what you have gotten on the other side is a message that's gonna not only get the audience to listen, but also get whatever benefit you were hoping from the message. Remember to always analyze, compose, and evaluate when writing your messages.